Welcome back to another episode of the Any Given Day podcast. Today's episode, we're going to be talking about the final recruiting class rankings, some more roster move news, some staff changes, along with some bowl game reviews and previews. So sit back, relax, and get ready for another exciting episode of the Any Given Day podcast.
Hey guys, welcome into the Any Given Day podcast. I'm Hunter. That's Zach. I guess I'll just go ahead and start it off. Bonner, how old do you feel?
Extremely old.
That's bullcrap because I feel older than you.
This
Because I am
very
older
true.
than you.
Yeah.
No. I saw earlier this week where the starting quarterbacks for UTSA and Marshall in the Frisco Bowl were Owen McCown, Josh McCown's son, and Cole Pennington, Chad Pennington's son. And I'll tell you right now, as someone who has seen now granted, Owen McCown's dad only retired like 4 or 5 years ago, it feels like. But as someone who grew up watching their dads play in the NFL, I felt old as all get out.
Oh, I know. I mean, like, I remember watching their dads play in the NFL growing up, and now that their sons are quarterbacks in college, I feel extremely old. Dang. That's crazy.
It really is.
Crazy.
I felt old when Frank Gore's son was over at Southern Miss, when he started over there. Like, I feel even older now.
Isn't Emmitt Smith's son in college too?
Somewhere. He is somewhere in college. Apparently, Devin, if you believe it, there's a kid, Devin Hester Jr. out of Athens, Georgia, who committed to Furman. I don't know if there's any relation to the actual Devin Hester, but
there's a Devin Hester Jr. All right.
Yeah, I don't know.
Nice.
Anyways, moving on to our next, not even our next topic, our first real topic of the night. High school rankings. Early signing day was yesterday. A lot of schools have finished out a good chunk of their class, if not all of it. Some have just exceeded expectations that were there, and some have been let down terribly. I think we'll just go into the top 5 mainly, and then there are a few that we kind of wanted to talk out that were outside of the top 5. So, number 1, the unanimous number 1 over all the recruiting rankings, composite number 1 recruiting class was Georgia. Go figure, with Kirby Smart and the University of Georgia right now, they always stick to the ABCs. Always be Cruden. Their top prospect was Ellis Robinson IV. That's a kid who is just a generational cornerback. He's probably going to be fighting for playing time immediately. I will not be shocked if he's lined up across from Dalen Everett day 1 next year, or whoever the other cornerback is.
Right. I mean, just an elite cover corner. I mean, he's going to be fantastic.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, add on to the fact that, you've got Dante Williams coming in, who is an elite man coverage defensive back coach. And Ellis Robinson's probably one of the top man coverage cornerbacks to ever come out of high school. It's looking like that secondary is going to be dangerous, especially since they also flipped KJ Bolden from Florida State, which was shocking. You started hearing rumblings like the night before, like there might be something going on, right? And then all of a sudden you start seeing all like these Georgia related podcasts are tuning into his announcement out of nowhere, and it's like, what the crap are they doing? Like, this, Georgia ain't got anyone over at Buford. Next thing you know, he flipped, and it was like, there goes Kirby.
Yeah. I mean, I watched it because I thought it was odd that I got a notification that, one of the Georgia podcast was going live, I was like, that's kind of weird because he's like, it wasn't like a Buford commitment. This is like KJ Bolden announces college commitment. And I went, it's kind of weird. So I watched it, and we should have known there was no hat science in this one. He didn't have any hats on the table.
Yeah.
But we should have known something was up whenever he was last out of like this 5 or 6 they had sitting there. I mean, they had Raiola, they had another guy that was going to Ohio State. I can't think of his name to save my life.
Edric Houston.
Thank you. And, you know, they had him last, and it was definitely the strangest commitment ceremony I've ever watched. Because generally, you know, there's some theatrics.
Yeah.
And there was none. It was very much all right, and last KJ Bolden, he is signing with University of Georgia. He threw the hat on the table. Howard G comes up behind him, and it's like, oh.
Yeah. After
okay.
the PowerPoint thing, it was I think what Buford was going for there is it was a team-based thing instead of a individual thing.
Right.
You know, which you look at all of it, and it's just like they got a bunch of guys who are going to D1 programs, you know, all over the country. They got some of the top-rated recruits in the country, you know.
Yeah.
This is coming from a former Calhoun player. You know, we do not like Buford. We do not have good history with Buford. You play him 4 years in a row in a state title, and you don't have good memories with them. Granted, I do, because the only time I played them, we beat them. So I'm undefeated against the Wolves. I'm
not. Played them once and lost in the playoffs.
Oof.
The only time we ever made it to the playoffs, first round, was Buford at Buford.
Yeah, it's not good.
It was cold. It was cold.
Okay, moving on and moving you out of your PTSD flashbacks.
Thank you.
Alabama. I would say they were the composite number 2. I think there was only one ranking system that did not have them at the number 2 class. Their top prospect was Julian Sayin, quarterback, not corner. I don't know why I stopped. But anyways, depending on who you talk to, he's one of the top quarterbacks in this class, if not the top quarterback. But I think more people are going Raiola is the top quarterback than right over him. You know, but he's still one of the best quarterbacks in this class. I think he's the top dual threat quarterback as well. Yeah. You know, between him, Ryan Matthews, Peyton Woodyard, you know, they've got another great class. And I think the argument could have been made that had Georgia not flipped KJ Bolden, there might have been an argument that maybe Alabama did have the better class. Possibly. I think Georgia would have eked them out by just a bit. But it's Nick Saban, you know. Everything Kirby Smart learned, he learned from him, recruiting wise. So I mean, I'm not surprised that they're a top 2 class. I think at this point it's kind of more shocking to see them not be number 1 than number 2.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it was a really good class all around. I mean, like you said, Saban is one of the best recruiters of all time. So it has become normal to see Georgia and Alabama atop the recruiting rankings. So
yeah,
I mean, great class.
Yeah. And speaking of Alabama, and we already mentioned his name earlier, Edric Houston. Apparently, there was a lot of stuff going into signing day yesterday, that there might be a possibility that they were going to flip him. And apparently, depending on who you ask, it came down to like the final 5 minutes before it.
Nice.
Apparently, his parents had like 2 different shirts. So,
dang.
Yeah. But anyways, he stuck with Ohio State, who probably finished out at number 3. For me, for my likings, at least number 3 recruiting class in the nation. Depending on how you view it, right? I think in most recruiting rankings, they had the most 5 stars, but they had like Georgia had like more draft picks by like 6 or 7. So
Yeah.
it's it's there, you know. It just depends on what you think. Their top recruit was Jeremiah Smith, wide receiver, which we've heard everything about this kid coming out of high school. He's insane, just insane. He's going to be an X. He's going to be a true-blooded X coming out of high school, going to college, and going to the NFL. This is a guy who's a future first rounder. Especially now that he's going to Ohio State, they are known for wide receivers and putting them in the NFL. He went to the best place for him, I think. At the end of the day, he's going to be a star there. He's going to go to the NFL and be a star there as well. And depending on who you ask, a lot of scouts and recruiting analysts were of the mindset that this class had 2 guys in it, and then everyone else. And those 2 guys were Ellis Robinson, the 4th, who's going to Georgia, and who was, I think, composite number 1 overall recruit in the country. And then Jeremiah Smith was the other one. And you saw them duke it out in a 7-on-7 earlier this spring. And it was insane to watch.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, just crazy. Number 4, Miami, which is weird to see because it feels like it's been a while since they've, you know, had this high of a recruiting class. Feels like it's been decades. Like, I know it hasn't been, but it feels like it. You know, their top recruit is Justin Scott, defensive lineman, one of the top defensive linemen in the nation. They also have Nikar, a few others in there. I'm not as in tune with their recruiting class as I should be. Man, they did this really silently. I want to add that real quick. I didn't hear that much about Miami's recruiting class. Like, you always hear about Mario Cristobal being this amazing recruiter, and he is a top 4 class in the country. But it was, like, so quiet, you know? The loudest thing I saw was when they flipped Nikar, and they flipped, some defensive lineman, I can't remember his name off the top of my head. They flipped him yesterday from Florida State, which we'll get into Florida State here in a bit, but
right.
I mean, they just, in my opinion, quietly put together like a top 5 recruiting class, and that's just shocking to say the least.
Yeah. I mean, I have one question. Is the U back?
Give it another year or 2. I want to see how they do this next year and the year after.
I agree. I mean, it's nice to see Miami back up there, you know, getting some good recruits and kind of being competitive, because it's always fun to have Miami competitive. It's just a fun team to watch. It's a fun team to root for. But they're still a couple years away, a couple of good recruiting classes away from being a national title contender. But that ACC is wide open next year.
It really is.
So
it really is.
Anything can happen.
I'd say the final class of the top 5 is Texas. You got Texas might actually be back at this point. I cannot believe I just said that. As someone who's so pissed off when Ellinger said it after the 2019 Sugar Bowl, they might actually be back, which is crazy to think about. Or was it 2018 Sugar Bowl?
2018. Yeah,
2018 season. No. Yeah, 2018 season, 2019 Sugar Bowl, though.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that was insane to think about, because I didn't think that they'd be back ever. But, you know,
they fell off.
Yeah, it was a hard fall, man.
Mm-hmm.
Like, just after 2009, it was a struggle for them.
It was very USC-esque.
Yeah, but you look at USC right now; they're still not back.
Yeah, they were back for like a year, if you want to
Not
call
even
that
really.
back. I mean,
No, that's not back.
not back.
Uh,
They were competitive for a year.
Basically, yeah. Anyways, Colin Simmons is probably their top recruit in this class, edge rusher, which kind of crazy that a defensive player is their top player when it's a Sarkisian head coach team. Yeah, not head coach, but with Sarkisian as the head coach. Let me rephrase that just a little bit better. Just crazy to think about. He got him. You got Ryan Wingo in this class. It's crazy. They don't, as far as I could see, they didn't really have a top quarterback, but you don't really need one.
No.
You got Ewers more than likely coming back next year. You got Arch Manning right behind him. They're set. They're set at the quarterback right now.
Yeah.
Anyways, that's the top 5 realistically.
Yeah.
I heard that you wanted to go and bring up
Let's
some other.
let's drop out of the top 5 a little bit, all the way down to number 98th ranked recruiting class, Colorado.
Oof. Yeah.
Can you guess how many high school players signed with Colorado yesterday?
5. I know the answer. It's 5.
5, with 6 committed total, and one of them's about to leave.
So theoretically,
Could possibly. There's rumors he could leave. Granted, they do have the number 1 ranked transfer class. They do have the number 1 ranked transfer class. But we said this at the beginning of this year, and I'll say it again. You cannot build a team around the transfer portal. It just doesn't. It doesn't work like that.
Nope.
There aren't enough players in the transfer portal for you to build an entire team around. You got to get kids in there, learning your system and learning the way you do things. You can dip in the portal for a need. If you need a wide receiver, need a quarterback, need something, that's fine. But you cannot go and sign an entire new starting lineup through the transfer portal and expect to win football games. You have to get these players in here. You have to get them learning your system, training your way, learning your way to do stuff. And if you only sign 6 high school players in an entire class, you're never going to get that.
No, you're not. It's not looking good for Dion. It hasn't looked good the entire time, right? In my opinion, it's looked like it's just looked bad from the very beginning. From when he came in and he's like, "I'm bringing my own luggage," and it's Louis, right? And to all the current players on the roster who got offers and all that. And typically when a coach comes in, there's some change to the roster if there's not necessarily a philosophy fit. But there are other times, and there's what happened with him, where he basically forced a good chunk of them out.
Right. I mean, basically, wholesale changes cut the entire team.
Yeah.
And brought in his own guys, and they won 4 games. Granted, an improvement on last year.
I mean, 400%, but still.
Right, but, I mean, that's not sustainable to do every year.
No.
You can't just go, our offensive line's bad, cut them all, and bring in new transfers.
Their offensive line was still trash.
Yeah. And then they're going to cut these guys and get some more, and they're still going to be trash because it's their first year in your system, learning your playbook and your plays. You're never going to be able to open up your playbook. You're never going to be able to do all this extra stuff because you have to go to the basics, because you're giving these guys spring practice and the summer to learn in fall camp, to learn your playbook and learn your system and learn your way of doing stuff and train and get ready for your system. It's not ever going to happen.
And then when you're having struggles with the offensive line, all of a sudden, halfway through the season, you're going to go and demote your OC, who left a head coaching job, to come be your offensive coordinator. and basically blame it all on him. I don't ever
Right.
want to be the guy that points a finger at a player, especially with how young some of these players are. But I can't help but think that part of it was possibly Shedeur saying, well, I don't like the way he calls the offense, to Dion,
Right.
and Dion being like, okay, we'll demote him, and we'll give this person a shot.
Right.
Like, you
Well, like-
basically changed the scheme halfway through the year.
Right. And it's like, they're like, okay, well, it's Sean Lewis's fault, right? And they demote him. And then after they demote him and it's still not getting better and arguably got worse, then it's like, well, it's our offensive line. Our offensive line's just bad and they can't keep Shedeur clean, so it's our offensive line's fault now. It's like, okay, we're just blaming everybody but yourself and your philosophy for this because you expected to come in here and win a national championship year one with a one-loss team?
Did. I don't think he did
Everybody
until
else
they
did.
hyped him up after the TCU win.
Yeah,
and even then, after the TCU win, it was like, or after when he finally went and said, okay, it's our offensive line's fault, I was like, okay, yeah, that I can actually believe, because they weren't a good offensive line.
No.
They never were. But you basically cost yourself one hell of an offensive coordinator based on possible nepotism, or it was either nepotism on his part or incompetence on his part. But because of that, when you do that, when you see all these guys transferring out of Colorado after 1 year there, that doesn't set a good example for recruits. The recruits start to be like, what's going on? Is this snake oil?
Yep.
So it hurt them a lot more. Jordan Seaton's only been committed to him for 2 weeks, and all of a sudden there's rumors that he might be flipping to Maryland. I don't know what's going up on Colorado, or up in Colorado. Heck, I don't. Here's the one thing that does worry me, right? I'm afraid that once Dion's kids graduate and Travis Hunter goes to the NFL, I worry that he's just going to leave the rest of the players high and dry.
It would not surprise me if he leaves for a different head coaching job at a bigger college after his kids leave, because Colorado offered it and he went. They're probably the only team that's offering it, really. And then he went, all right, I'll take it, and I'll get my kids in a D1 college. And as soon as his kids are gone, he's like, all right, now I'm going to go somewhere else.
I just...
Because why not?
Yeah, it's bad. It really is. I don't know what's going on there. I think the other two schools you wanted to talk about were Florida and Florida State.
Florida State has just had an awful last month. I guess it's about a month and a half now. It's been about a month, I guess.
Started December.
Yeah, so,
awful 2 weeks.
Awful it has. 3 weeks. Jordan Travis breaks his leg, and since then, it has been nothing but bad news after bad news for them. They go and win their conference championship game, get left out of the playoffs. KJ Bolden flips. They have a couple other flips, and it's just things were looking up about halfway through this year and thinking, all right, we're starting to get better, and we may have a chance to compete for a national title in the next year or two. And then your quarterback breaks his leg too late in the season for you to prove that your backup quarterback is good enough for you to play in the playoffs. And
it's North Alabama.
Right. How different could this season have been for them if Jordan Travis breaks his leg in the third week of the season? And if they can figure it out and go undefeated from then they might make it in the playoffs.
They probably would have by then.
Right.
Because
he got hurt the last 2 weeks of the season. They didn't give the committee enough time, apparently, to see, oh yeah, their backup quarterback's good enough for them to compete.
Mm-hmm.
And got left out of the playoffs. Their class is not falling apart, but they've lost a couple key pieces.
Yeah.
It's just a shame that their classes...
fell out the top 10.
Florida State fans, I feel you, because it seems like everything has gone horribly wrong.
They fell out of the top 10. I know. I think they fell down to 11th. Anyways,
But yeah, I mean, you got any thoughts on Florida State?
rough. It sucks, and we'll get a bit more into it once we get to like the roster movements and portals and all that. But and draft declarations, dear God, they've had a lot of those. But it's been rough. Florida's also having it rough. They were a top 5 class, and I don't even know what they're ranked at this point. So, yeah.
Yeah, moving on. Florida, they've their classes kind of started to fall apart too. I mean, and people are really starting to ask this question of should Billy Napier be let go? And I don't think so. But I mean, he's had a good recruiting class, but their recruiting class has kind of fallen apart these last couple of weeks. So it's just kind of like, what are we gonna do? Like Florida fans are just concerned that is Napier not the answer? They were, hyping him up big coming out of once he got hired, and then it's just kind of been this last couple of days with signing day that their classes just kind of poofed and disappeared, and it's kind of, I mean, they had a top 5 class coming into signing day, and they fell out of the top 5, so it's definitely not looking up for Florida fans right now. The state of Florida is just in shambles, other than Miami, apparently. So, I mean, what do you think about the whole situation? I mean, should Napier be on the hot seat because of this recruiting class? Does this? I mean, I know that was kind of the saving grace for a lot of Florida fans. It's like, well, yeah, the season didn't turn out great, but we had this recruiting class, and now the recruiting class is kind of falling apart. So, do you think that should put him on the hot seat? Do you think it affects it at all? I mean, what do you think?
As long as he's still able to pull in LJ McCray and Lagway. Is it LJ McCray?
Yeah.
Lecrae. Yeah, as long as he's still able to pull in those two, I think he still should be given till at least the end of the season. Now, granted, you've got some others that are still kind of recruiting these guys and being like trying to get in their good books should like the worst come to worst and Napier get fired mid-season. If that happens, then those guys probably transfer. So who knows? We've said it multiple times. This is a guy from Chatsworth, Northwest Georgia, like we are. You wish him the best, right? And good luck telling him he's fired without a fight, because he'll break your deadgum nose. Chatsworth boys don't play around. It's just, I don't know. You've got some people going and saying that firing Dan Mullen after one bad year was, wrong, but it was like, he was not recruiting. Like, he was not doing as good recruiting as it feels like Napier has been, in a way, but right. Napier's put out a worse product on the field somehow.
Somehow.
And I don't know what it is. I don't know if Florida's fallen behind on on-field product or not. It feels like they've fallen behind somewhere, but no one really knows where it is. And it's so weird. But I think you got to at least give him through the third year. At least.
I agree. Yeah, I mean, you got to give him a chance for his first recruiting class to come in here and get some playing time and be the guys on that team. Because what he's been working with for the last 2 seasons has been Dan Mullen's recruiting classes, which were basically non-existent.
Yep.
So I think you give him at least one more season. Now, if he doesn't make a bowl next year, I think you just don't have a choice.
Yeah.
Because Florida can't afford to not be in bowl games. They are supposed to be a powerhouse and contender in the SEC every year, and other than 2020, they haven't been.
Mm-hmm.
So,
but you also have to look at their schedule next year too. That I think they've got like the toughest schedule in the FBS next year as well.
And that could maybe give him some leeway. I still think he needs to make a bowl, because if not, I think Florida fans will definitely revolt.
Yes.
And that is going to cause the top brass there to go, we're going to have to make a move, regardless of whether we believe that Napier is the answer or not, 2 straight years without a bowl game is not going to cut it, not at Florida. I mean, they fired Dan Mullen after one bad year. Granted, he wouldn't recruit. So, I mean, if they give Napier a whole year and he doesn't make a bowl game, that's being generous.
Mm-hmm. Question. Say they do fire Napier. And this is just, I don't think it will happen. I do not think it will happen. What's to stop them from trying to go back and get Urban Meyer for a second stint? Besides ethics.
Ethics would be the main reason why I wouldn't do that. But other than ethics, money. It depends on how much money you'd have to pay him to come out of retirement. I mean, he seems to be enjoying being an analyst for Fox.
Yeah.
So
fair. I will say, can you just imagine how chippy the Georgia-Florida game would be?
Ridiculously chippy.
Oh my God! Like, if that might like reinvigorate the rivalry in such a way, like, oh my God. I'm not ever going to say something's Iron Bowl levels, because the Iron Bowl, that's a whole other universe. Own level of like hatred, right? But out of all of Georgia's rivals, they hate Florida the most, because they're the ones that have kept up with them the most. And before anyone says, well, Bama's technically owns a winning record against them, I get that. But when you think of traditional college, traditional rivalries, Alabama, Georgia right now, I would say is budding into a rivalry. And plus, Georgia has to... I'm a Georgia fan, but even I'll own up and say, hey, Georgia has to beat Alabama a few more times. Like a few times in a row before this thing truly becomes like a rivalry.
Right. Right now it's Alabama beating Georgia 99% of the time, except for that one time where they got good and beat them in the national championship. So like,
yeah, that hurts my heart to say it, because I got family who are Bama fans and they're gonna see this and you admit it. No, I admit crap, but is what it is. But I think people are starting to realize Georgia and Alabama, whenever Georgia and Alabama play, it is a big game. It's one of the biggest games in the nation. It's going to be a primetime game. It's just going to be. Doesn't matter where it's at. Yeah. So, great. But with as much as Urban did to the University of Georgia while he was the head coach of the Florida, that first go-round, and I'm not saying it's even a actual thought of his to come back to Florida, but if he did, you gotta think some of that stuff's in the back of Kirby's head. He might have been coaching over at LSU and Alabama at the time, but Urban did some messed up crap. So
I agree.
So I think
that would definitely bring that rivalry back.
Oh, without a doubt. I think it would jump right back up there to top 3 rivalries.
I agree.
I think the only 2 that could possibly be it would be Iron Bowl and the game.
Oh yeah, no, I agree.
Anyways.
To move on, I'm going to run through some roster moves real quick. I'm going to say them. If you got anything you want to say about them, go ahead. If you agree, disagree, think it's something that's stupid.
Yeah.
First up, we got Kyle McCord, passed on Nebraska and is committed to Syracuse, obviously the Ohio State starting quarterback last year.
Mm-hmm. I think it's a good move for him. I think it's a good move and pickup for Syracuse. When's the last time they had a quarter? Yeah, and some people say, well, McCord was trash over at Ohio State last year. Yeah, sure, but he's still a better quarterback than what Syracuse typically picks up. Typically, Syracuse is getting at best a 3-star. McCord's at least a 4-star quarterback, so I think he's going to be one of their better quarterbacks they've had in a while. And anyone who knows it, well, I'm not going to say anyone who knows anything, because there's no real telling why this happened, but rumors are that McCord passed on Nebraska because Nebraska basically guaranteed that Raiola was going to start day one. And that was part of their NIL package for him.
Yeah.
Supposedly.
I think that might have played something into it, but at the end, it was a great pickup for Syracuse, and it gives Kyle McCord a chance to have a second chance, even though he didn't really have a terrible season at Ohio State. He just wasn't. He came in at a bad time. He came in right after C.J. Stroud.
Yeah.
If it was any other time after a different quarterback, it wouldn't have been as bad. But he came after a really great quarterback in C.J. Stroud, and was not C.J. Stroud in his first year starting. But C.J. Stroud wasn't C.J. Stroud in his first year starting. So,
yeah, no.
I think Ohio State was a little pampered there, but
yeah,
a little spoiled.
A bit. Moving on.
Yep, Jamon Dumas Johnson, the Georgia linebacker, entered the transfer portal and committed to Kentucky.
I think this is actually a great pairing. Just the type of player that Jamon Dumas Johnson is, hard worker, all that. It was a bit of a shock entry. Like, I don't think anyone in the SEC really thought, Jamon Dumas Johnson is going to leave Georgia. But with that injury that happened to him towards the end of the year, C.J. Allen getting a lot more snaps, and everybody just, being super impressed by him. Like, C.J. Allen is a freaking stud. And he was a true freshman this year. And he was going to take a lot of Jamon Dumas Johnson's snaps. No way around it. Sucks to see him go, but he's going to a great program when it comes to developing guys. Taking guys in and developing them. He's also going over there with Brock Vandagriff. So, hey, good for Kentucky. I think this will actually be a pretty good pairing.
Yeah, I hate to see him go. I love him. He's a great kid, great player, and was a leader on that Georgia team. But obviously, he got hurt, and it opens the door. You see it all the time in college football. A guy gets hurt, and the guy behind him comes in and just never gives that job back up because he's just as good. Especially at some of these top programs, you got guys behind guys that are just as good, if not better. So, nothing against Jamon Dumas Johnson. He's a great linebacker, and Kentucky's getting a really good one. So, I'm glad he's going to a good program. Kentucky's going to take care of him, and they're going to enjoy him. Next up, Will Rogers commits to Washington, thus saving Aaron Murray's SEC passing record.
I think he cracked open some champagne.
Oh yeah. Claps all around.
It's a great match. Will Rogers is very much an air raid quarterback, so I think Kalen DeBoer got him one. Possibly. Who knows? I don't think he'll be as good as Penix, but that's just my thought. Skip the next one because I screwed up on the script.
I know.
After you get done talking. My bad.
Yeah, no, you're good. Washington needed to make this move. Obviously, with Penix leaving, they needed a quarterback, and I don't know that they necessarily have somebody already in the program. And Will Rogers is a good quarterback. It's just that change in philosophy this year.
Yeah,
R.I.P. Mike Leach.
Swing your swords.
After that change in philosophy, they couldn't get it figured out on offense this year. So I think going back to a system he's familiar with is going to be great for him. And Washington definitely got themselves a good one. So, obviously he was going to break Aaron Murray's record and probably would have this year had he not had just an awful year all around.
Yeah.
But, good for Washington. We're going to skip this one because Jamon Dumas Johnson's on here twice.
Sorry. I was typing it up at 2 a.m. one morning.
You're fine. I figured. Next, we got Georgia cornerback A.J. Harris entered the transfer portal. Now there has been some rumors that he may be going back to Georgia. He had entered. There was some talk that maybe he was going to Auburn. That talk's kind of stopped a little bit. Nobody knows but this kid what's going to happen. It seemed as if Georgia wanted him to possibly play a different position. They were looking at maybe moving him to slot corner or safety. He didn't really want to do that. He thought he was a boundary corner. He went to some other places. They said, no, we think you're a safety, you're a slot corner too. And he went, I don't know. So it's kind of up in the air. It seems as it's leaning back to him coming back to Georgia, but for now, he's still in the transfer portal.
Yep. Yeah. It's from what I understand, it was more than just that. It was also he was getting passed up by some of the other players in his class. Those other players,
Yeah.
not to say he's not a hard worker, like in any way, shape, or form, but apparently those other players were putting in a bit more work than him, supposedly. I don't really know. That's just whispers I've heard. It is what it is. End of the day. The next one's kind of shocking. USC quarterback Malachi Nelson. He was the number one recruit in the 2023 class, depending on your recruiting service. He's entered the transfer portal. That's
Yeah. Strange, considering they needed a quarterback now that Caleb Williams is going to be gone. But from what I understand and what I've read, it seems like Lincoln Riley was going after, I think it's Will Howard.
in
the transfer, in the transfer portal, which to me screams that he didn't think Malachi was ready, or wasn't. I mean, I've read that he wasn't really working really hard, and he kind of thought he should be handed it, and he wasn't really figuring it out. I've read that, it's not necessarily that, and it's that, he's not getting the NIL he was promised. It's just kind of this whole, who knows, but obviously he's entered the transfer portal, so something happened, whether it was Lincoln Riley didn't think he was ready or wasn't what he thought he was, or it was NIL or whatever. You never know now with everything going on. Somebody's going to get a good quarterback, I assume. I don't know. He didn't really play much because he's playing behind Caleb Williams, and they weren't really killing it anybody this year for him to really get in and play a whole lot. So somebody's getting a quarterback. I don't know if he's going to be great or not.
Moving on.
FSU edge Jared Verse will sit out the Orange Bowl and declares for the NFL draft. This is just another string of Florida State starters who are just not playing in the Orange Bowl. It's getting worse and worse for them. Like we said earlier with the recruiting class, it seems like, it's just something's
a series of unfortunate events.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, but
I'm proud of that.
I'm proud of you for that. I'm proud of you. I'm going to skip down and get those last two Florida State players while we're on it.
Yeah.
Trey Benson, the running back, Florida State, starting running back, opts out of the Orange Bowl, as well as Keon Coleman, their leading wide receiver, also opts out of the Orange Bowl.
And this is after
to go to the NFL.
And this is after their second leading wide receiver, Johnny Wilson, had already opted out. And from my understanding, Keon Coleman a day or two ago was like, no, I'm playing in it. And then all of a sudden today he opted out. It's just like, I can't imagine those poor underclassmen that are fixing to have to go up against a pissed off Georgia.
Right. It's not going to be good.
Their third string quarterback's the one who's going to be playing, apparently. Apparently Rodemaker's still not cleared yet.
Jeez.
It's
going to be a disaster.
Yeah. Speaking of the Orange Bowl, we know who Georgia's quarterback's going to be in that.
Yep. Carson Beck has announced he plans to return for his fourth year. Great for Georgia fans. I mean, he needed to return. It's because he only had that 1 year of starting under his belt. He wasn't ever really going to go super high in the draft this year because the NFL, NFL GMs look for that longevity and consistently starting in college and getting those years under your belt, because having a dude who started 1 year and having a dude who started who started 60 games, I mean, it changes a little bit. You just get that experience of leading an offense. So I get it, but you can't
go.
I mean, he needed to come back for his fourth year, and I think once you saw Brock Vandagriff go in the portal, it was pretty obvious that he was going to come back because why would Brock Vandagriff leave if Carson was going to the NFL? Because Vandagriff could stay and try and fight Gunnar Stockton for that starting job. But
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure we've basically known that Carson Beck was coming back since as soon as the portal opened. But I mean, he's going to do great in that offense next year with the year starting under his belt. I think he'll do great.
Yeah. I will say, this is just a bit of pettiness on my part. I saw on Twitter today that some random Alabama fan, or no, it was last night, tweeted out, I don't know why all these Georgia fans getting excited about a sixth rounder coming back. And I'm like, are you serious right now? I couldn't keep my mouth shut, and I responded back, if he's a sixth rounder as a quarterback, then Jalen Milroe is an undrafted free agent. And that is not a knock on Jalen Milroe as a whole. I think he's one of the best playmakers in college football. But Carson Beck is a better quarterback than him. We've said that before. Jalen Milroe, the way he uses his legs and finds a way to get a deep shot, incredible. Carson's a better processor, though, so is what it is.
I agree.
Anyways, we got a few more we got to run through pretty quickly, get to staff changes and all that.
Yeah. I'll just run through these real quick. Stop me if you got something you want to say.
Yeah.
Vanderbilt transfer wide receiver London Humphreys committed to the University of Georgia.
Taller lad McConkey.
Basically. Maryland quarterback Talia Tagovailoa.
Yep.
Has opted out of the Music City Bowl against Auburn. I assume he's going to the NFL.
Yes, he is. I think he needs to play one more game. He needs all the reps, all the footage he can get.
I agree, but we'll see if he gets drafted. Texas A&M transferred defensive lineman LT Overton has committed to Alabama. Just what they needed, another elite defensive lineman. UCLA transfer quarterback Dante Moore is committed to Oregon. They got the two top quarterbacks in the transfer portal. I mean, Dylan Gabriel and Dante Moore.
Yeah. I wonder how Ty Thompson over there feels. I don't know if he's in the transfer portal yet.
I think he did. He did after Dylan Gabriel committed, and now he definitely needs to if he hasn't. But,
yeah. Agreed.
Yeah, he's definitely getting passed up by them. USC cornerback Damani Jackson has entered the transfer portal, obviously after his position coach left to go to Georgia. Georgia's not really a player in that, from what I've heard. He's looking at Alabama or Michigan. Vanderbilt transfer. Go ahead.
Real quick before the Vanderbilt transfer, another USC player that entered the transfer portal was Corey Foreman. He's ranked in the transfer portal as a 3-star recruit when he was the number 1 recruit in the class last year. From my understanding,
that USC effect.
Yeah. Anyways, go on.
Vanderbilt transfer quarterback AJ Swan has committed to LSU. They definitely needed somebody. Just to fill in some depth. I don't think he's starting.
No,
because they got Nussmeier.
Yeah,
but they definitely needed some depth.
Yep.
After Jane Daniels is leaving, so that'll be some good depth for them.
Yep.
Some good news for Florida State: UGA transfer edge Marvin Jones Jr. committed to Florida State. He was his dad played for Florida State, didn't he?
Yep.
So obviously homegrown kid. So that's.
Not really surprised.
Good for them. No, can't blame them. KJ Jefferson, Arkansas quarterback, has entered the transfer portal. Not a huge surprise. New offensive coordinator, and he hasn't really had a whole lot of success necessarily at Arkansas the time he's been there. He's been good, but he's not had like Heisman seasons or nothing like that. So
I think
maybe change of scenery. Go ahead.
I think a dark horse to land him. And I think if he went there, it could be a game changer. Florida State.
Ooh, that would be huge for Florida State.
I think he could actually tap his potential there. I really do.
He's basically a bigger Jordan Travis.
Basically, yeah. I won't throw him in the Cam Newton conversations because Cam Newton was his own beast.
He's a
But once again, speaking about Florida State, real quick before we get to the staff changes, I do want to go and pop up something that I kind of is been out and about all day today, just because when I get through this, we're not really going to be talking about Florida State as much after this. We're just doing some staff changes, bowl reviews, previews, all that. When it comes down, well, not when it comes down, I don't even know why I started with that. Apparently tomorrow, the Board of Trustees for Florida State is going to be having a meeting where there is a possibility that they could start filing the motions to go and try to break out of the ACC. I don't know if that's a smart idea on their part.
No, I agree. I don't think it's the best move, especially with this new format where, with basically the Pac-12 being gone and the top 4 conference champions get a bye. If you're in the ACC, it's wide open right now. You have a chance to get a bye and you're in the playoffs. There is no conversation. If you're, one of the top 4 ranked conference, Power 5 conference champions, you're in. So to me, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to go somewhere like the ACC or the Big Ten and have to try and compete with Ohio State, Michigan, Washington, Oregon, Georgia, Alabama. Like, it doesn't make sense to go into another conference unless you're going like the Big 12, who is not really going to have a top flight team next year with Texas and Oklahoma leaving. But
I would think if they were to, and I think the only reason this would get out is if it was big enough money, right?
Right.
So my whole thing is, I don't think if they do try and break from the ACC, it won't be to go to the Big 12. There's not enough money there anymore. Texas and
It'd have to be
Oklahoma
the SEC or the Big Ten.
Yeah. And the SEC has openly stated, well, we're content with the amount of teams we have right now. I think if they went to the Big Ten, though, the Big Ten as a whole would be spread way too thin. Not to mention, why would they do that to themselves where they're having to make cross-country flights to LA and possibly twice in 1 year? I don't think they'd do it. I don't think they'd make the schedules that way, but...
No, I mean, to have to go play USC, then go up to Ohio State or Michigan and Penn State, and it'd just be a logistic disaster. But
if they break away from the ACC, the conference they need to go to, just the healthiest one overall, I think, would be the SEC. Because if the SEC can go and get them and Clemson to break away from the SEC or the ACC to join them, think about how many rivalries you got there. You've got the Palmetto Bowl, Clemson, South Carolina. You've got an old rivalry between Clemson and Georgia. You've got
Florida
rivalry.
State.
You've got the Sunshine Showdown with Florida State and Florida. I mean, there's a lot more natural rivals there. So,
right, and it's all regional at that point, other than Oklahoma and Texas.
Yeah, basically. It's...
Yeah. I mean, if they're going to go anywhere, the SEC makes the most sense. But
yeah, unless they're just chasing money.
Yeah. Moving on, staff changes. USC defensive back coach Dante Williams takes the job, defensive backs coach job at Georgia.
Yeah.
Pretty big hire for Georgia. I mean, he's a great recruiter and a really great man-to-man coach. Elite recruiter. So it fits the bill for Kirby. Kirby and Will Muschamp, great defensive back coaches.
Mm-hmm.
So to get an elite recruiter who can recruit the California West Coast area really well and unlock that region for Georgia,
Even
it's
further.
great for them. Even further, yeah. So that's great for them.
Just
Go ahead.
I love that hire. I really do. Apparently Kirby's been chasing this guy for like the past 4 years.
Right.
So
And now he's finally got him. So
yeah.
Former Houston defensive coordinator Doug Belk has been hired as USC's new defensive back coach. So a backwards move a little bit, but bigger program.
Yeah.
Hopefully he can get something figured out on that defense because they're getting a new defensive coordinator next year in Danton Lynn. So hopefully their defense will be better next year because it was anemic this year.
Yes. I will say before Dante Williams, I was seeing a lot of stuff about Doug Belk possibly being one of the names to watch out for to be Georgia's new defensive back coach. It was kind of weird because I hadn't really heard that much about him, but then things worked out the way they did. Dante Williams to Georgia, Doug Belk taking over from him. So is what it is. And the only other staff change that I could see is Lane Kiffin. Not that he's moving schools, but he signed a new extension through 2028.
I mean, it's good for Ole Miss.
Yeah.
Lane Kiffin's done great there. I mean, they haven't really had an elite season, but with this new playoff format, Ole Miss is going to be a contender to get in the playoffs pretty much every year.
Especially with all the transfers they're bringing in. Like their
defense is going to be really good.
They're one of the final 2 schools for Walter Nolan, which is huge. They got Prince Uiamale.
I think that's how you pronounce it.
Yeah, however you pronounce it, out of the...
they got like the top 2 edge players in the portal. They're looking at Walter Nolan, like you said. So
it's crazy.
That defense is going to be much better next year, and their offense is basically returning everybody
I
on
think
offense.
Basically said, look...
They're going to be really good next year.
Lane basically said, look, we're going all in on making the playoffs next year with this new format. Yeah.
It's our best chance. Let's go for it.
Yeah. It's sorry for the pause. I'm getting updates on Major League Baseball right now. Anyways,
all right. We'll
anyways,
move on. We're gonna bust through these real quick.
Yeah, sorry.
I'm just gonna tell you the games, give you the scores. We'll go through that.
Yeah. Everyone's favorite bowl, Myrtle Beach Bowl.
First bowl game is the Myrtle Beach Bowl. Ohio defeated Georgia Southern 41-21. Oh yeah. Everybody's favorite bowl.
I was shocked by this.
Pretty much what we expected. Really?
I was expecting.
I didn't think it'd be this out of hand, but I
thought it would be a closer game, and I thought Georgia Southern was going to pull it. I think we both had Georgia Southern.
Ohio would. I thought we both had Ohio.
I don't remember. I know we shared on this one.
I don't remember.
We shared on everyone except for one, and I can't remember which one that was. Do you?
Right. I don't.
Crap.
Next game is the R+L Carriers New Orleans Bowl. Jacksonville State defeated Louisiana 34-31. Jacksonville State becomes the first team to win their first bowl game in their first season at the FBS level because of some bogus rules. But thankfully, because of those bogus rules, Jacksonville State will go down in history. And I love that.
You're so proud right now.
Go Gamecocks.
Fair enough.
I'm going to be wearing a
Stanford hat next episode.
Oh, God.
Not really.
I'll let you say the name of this next bowl. I know this is your favorite.
Avocados from Mexico Bowl.
App State defeated Miami of Ohio.
No.
13-9.
It's Miami of Ohio. You gotta add the pause. Make everyone think.
That's my bad.
Yeah.
Miami of Ohio. 13-9. Very strange score. Very low scoring game. But I figured App State would win this one. App State's been so good you can't ever count them out. Obviously they handed James Madison their first loss this year. So
yep.
Great for them. Ileta, New Mexico Bowl?
Ileta.
Fresno State defeated New Mexico State 37-10. I
had
believe we
New
both picked New
Mexico's.
Mexico State.
Yeah, we both
So-
did. I think we were wrong.
Yeah.
And a little bit more to add on to this one. Apparently, there was some drama off the field. New Mexico State's head coach kind of tore into New Mexico's, not New Mexico State's, but New Mexico's AD, athletic director, not anything else. But apparently there was some drama from this offseason that got revealed after New Mexico State beat New Mexico. Diego Pavia, who was the starting quarterback for New Mexico State, apparently there's a video of him urinating on the logo in the indoor practice facility for New Mexico, and that got leaked after New Mexico State beat New Mexico this year. Jerry Kill, who's the head coach for New Mexico State, went and said he hadn't even heard of that or seen of it until it got released. He did not know about it, and the moment they did, they took away media privileges. He was disciplined, right? But apparently the bowl had to come down and force New Mexico's AD to let New Mexico State practice in the indoor facility on their day to practice in the indoor facility. And even then, New Mexico State, or not New Mexico State, but New Mexico's AD made sure that there were cops there to escort them from the premise as soon as possible.
Nice.
I don't know. Jerry Kill went off on this guy, Eddie Nunez. So there's some drama there. Gotta love it.
Nice.
Gotta love rivalries.
Oh yeah, it's bowl season.
Yeah. Anyways, next one.
The Starco Brands LA Bowl, UCLA defeated Boise State 35-22. About what I expected.
Yeah. UCLA was home field advantage, basically.
Basically, it's closer than their home stadium to the campus. So not often that happens.
Yep.
Next, the Radiance Technologies Independence Bowl, Texas Tech defeated Cal 34-14.
Yep.
It's about what we expected. Next is the famous Toastery Bowl. Western Kentucky defeated Old Dominion 38-35. Now, I don't know if you know this. Western Kentucky was down 28-0 at one point, obviously before mounting the comeback. The quarterback that led that comeback entered the transfer portal, was already in the transfer portal, but dressed out for the game. He ended up coming in and leading that comeback.
Wow.
The quarterback that led the comeback had already entered the transfer portal. They let him dress out, and he ended up playing in the game and led a comeback and won them the game in overtime.
Yep. That's college football to the core right there. That is bowl season to the core.
Absolutely.
I love it. That's awesome, actually. And think,
awesome story.
And think, this is basically a substitute bowl. This replaced the Bahamas Bowl this year, because the Bahamas Bowl, the stadium they play at it for that one was under renovations this year. They could have done that in the Bahamas.
That would have been awesome.
Oh yeah.
We're going to move on to our bowl game previews, but first, we missed out on this one a little bit. This first one, we started a little bit too late. So we're gonna do a little bit of a review here. There's 7 minutes and 44 seconds left in the fourth quarter, and it is not pretty, folks. It is the roofclaim.com Boca Raton Bowl, USF versus Syracuse. Right now, USF is up 45-0.
Oof. Oh, dear Lord. It got worse.
With 7:44 left in the fourth quarter. So, not at all what anybody thought would happen. Obviously, the line was Syracuse by 2.5, and that was wrong.
Yeah, apparently they've got a tight end playing quarterback right now.
Yeah. But they'll have Colin McCord next year.
Yeah.
So, it's only up from here.
Only up from here. It was 31-0 at halftime.
Yeah. Only up from here. Moving on to the actual bowl game previews.
I'm glad we did not pick that one, by the way, real quick.
We would have picked Syracuse.
I was going to pick Syracuse.
I was gonna pick Syracuse, and we would have been wrong.
We would have been dead wrong. Starting tomorrow, Friday, December 22nd, 2023. It's the only bowl game for tomorrow night. The Union Home Mortgage Gasparilla Bowl in Tampa, Florida. It's going to be Georgia Tech versus UCF. 6:30 kickoff. Line's UCF by 4.5, and the over/under is 67.5. Give me UCF. Give me the Gus Bus. Dear God, I can't believe I just said that. Ugh. Wrong?
Georgia Tech.
Wow.
Give me Georgia Tech.
I'm writing them down this time because we got to back.
Because there's too many bowl games to try and remember which one we picked. Moving on to the Saturday slate, December 23rd, 2 days before Christmas.
Is that the right one?
The 76 Birmingham Bowl. Troy versus Duke. The line is Troy by 7.5. Over/under's 44.5. Is Riley Leonard playing?
No, he is in the transfer portal and already committed.
Oh, where'd he go?
Notre Dame. We talked about that.
Did he go to Notre Dame? It's been so long. Troy. Give me Troy.
Let's see. Birmingham. Troy versus Duke. Yeah, Troy's favored by 7.5, so give me Troy as well. Give me a second to catch up on the write-downs. That way I can go and... You have Georgia Tech, right? In the other one?
I do.
Okay. And I have the Fighting Malzahns, and then we both have Troy. We'll get it streamlined next year, but yeah. Next one's going to be the Camellia Bowl, Montgomery, Alabama, Arkansas State versus Northern Illinois. That's a noon kickoff on Saturday as well, I should say. Arkansas State's favored by 2.5. Over-under is 53.5. I guess give me Arkansas State. I don't really know that much about either one of these teams, I'll be honest.
Yeah, me either. Yeah, give me Arkansas State. I don't know anything about Northern Illinois. I don't really know anything about Arkansas State either. So,
yep,
I'm gonna go with whatever Vegas thinks. Obviously, Vegas has proved us wrong though in the Syracuse game. So,
dear God, they have.
Next is the Lockheed Martin Armed Forces Bowl, Fort Worth, Texas. It's James Madison versus Air Force at 3:30 p.m. kickoff. Line is James Madison by 2.5. Over/under 41.5. Give me James Madison.
I cannot agree with you more on this one. I am not seeing James Madison lose to Air Force.
Not in their first bowl game.
No, not in the first one. When they fought so hard for it.
Oh, no kidding, right? At least they finally got it. I'd have been mad if they hadn't.
Yeah. Next up is the famous Idaho Potato Bowl. Sorry. In Boise, Idaho, played on the blue turf, all that. Georgia State versus Utah State, 3:30 kickoff. Utah State is favored by 3. The over-under is 61.5. Which way you going in this one, I think? Or which way you going in this one?
Georgia State.
You're going Georgia State. Wow.
I gotta rep the home state. You know what I'm saying?
Okay, well, this is another disagreement on us. And this is... Yeah, both times you're picking the Georgia team, and I'm not.
I have to.
I'm picking Utah State solely because I'm going to pull for the team whose quarterback is giving up football to go and become a Naval SEAL.
I mean, it's a wonderful story, and more power to him. I love it.
Plus, Vegas favors him.
Well, yeah, it's because of the story. Let's be honest.
Is it, though?
It's the story. Probably not. He's actually a really good football player, but what can you do? Next up is the 68th Ventures Bowl in Mobile, Alabama. South Alabama versus Eastern Michigan. This is a 7 p.m. kickoff. The line is South Alabama by 15.5. Over/under is 46.5. Vegas must have something right. Give me South Alabama.
I cannot agree more. South Alabama is already basically at home with this one compared to Eastern Michigan. You know, they don't have as far to travel. It's going to be warm weather. Eastern Michigan isn't used to that. Mobile right on the bay, so you know what? I agree. South Alabama. I think they'll cover.
Nice.
The SRS Distribution Las Vegas Bowl, obviously in Las Vegas, Nevada, is next. Utah versus Northwestern, 7:30 kickoff. Utah is favored by 6.5. The over-under is 41.5. So they think it's going to be a rather low-scoring affair, not as low-scoring as it could be. But still, give me Utah on this one. I am not going against the Fighting Kyle Whittinghams.
Yeah, give me Utah. They've been good all year, except for what they lost to Oregon.
Yes,
So-
they lost to a few others, but
but big games.
they didn't have Cam
Give
Rising.
me Utah. Exactly. Next is the Easy Post Hawaii Bowl in Honolulu. Coastal Carolina versus San Jose State, 10:30 p.m. kickoff. God help me.
Eastern
San
Standard
Jose
Time.
State. Yeah, I know. San Jose State's favored by 10.5. Over under is 53.5. Give me San Jose State.
Yeah. Look,
This travel.
I mean, it's a long travel for San Jose. Coastal Carolina is going to have a freaking layover to get there.
Yeah.
Or has had a layover to get there. Now, granted, if they're not making a New Year's Six bowl, this is the best bowl game to go to because they get to go to freaking Hawaii.
Yeah.
But yeah, San Jose State, they might just cover. Especially since Grayson McCall's in the transfer portal. So, yeah, I agree. San Jose State on this one. Next is going to be. Well, I say next. Give me a second. Yeah, okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Never mind. I'm stupid. I was trying to figure out why there wasn't a bowl game on Monday. That's Christmas. Sorry. Yeah.
Did you forget that December 25th was Christmas?
I forgot. It's my old age. I'm slipping up.
You're
Anyways,
not that old.
Tuesday, December 26th, 2023. First game is going to be the Quick Lane Bowl up in Detroit, Michigan. Bowling Green versus Minnesota. It's 2 p.m. kickoff. Line is Minnesota minus 3.5. The over-under is 38.5, and that might be the lowest over-under yet. So, I want to say Bowling Green would pull the upset here, but I think I pissed off some family if I did that. I've got a cousin. She's from, granted, she married into the family, but she family now, no matter what. And she is one of the sweetest people I have ever known. She is I think she's number one on my all-time list of kindest and sweetest people I've ever met. So I'm going. I'm going with Stacy's home state, and I'm picking Minnesota to win.
If I may say, to go from the Easy Post Hawaii Bowl in Honolulu, which would be very nice to go to.
Yes.
To the Quick Lane Bowl in Detroit, Michigan.
They screwed up pizza there.
I mean, would you rather be in Honolulu or Detroit?
Honolulu.
I agree.
Unless you were going to give me a free Ford car, which even then I wouldn't want. I'm a Chevy man. Right? I would sell the piece of crap for money. Dear God, I hope they don't try to sponsor us in a few years.
I'm a Ford guy. Ford, if you
Chevy, all the way.
Want to sponsor us. I'm a Ford guy. I'm sorry.
Let me rephrase that. I am whoever will sponsor us first. Please let it be Ferrari.
Right? I would love a Ferrari. Give me Bowling Green.
Bowling Green? Fair enough. I do not blame you for taking that pick. That just seems like one where...
It just seems like a letdown spot for Minnesota.
Yeah.
Next up is the ServPro First Responder Bowl in Dallas, Texas. Texas State versus Rice, 5:30 p.m. kickoff. Line's Texas State by 4, over under 60.5. Not really. Travel doesn't really matter on this one.
Yeah, they're both Texas teams.
Yeah. Give me Texas State.
I agree. Texas State.
The Fighting Bobcats.
Yeah,
The
fighting
Bobcats?
Bobcats.
They're Bobcats.
Yeah.
All right.
Some
Proud of myself for that.
Wildcats, maybe.
It's a cat.
Yes, a wild feral cat.
Yes.
Let's see. How many? 1, 2, 3 disagreements so far. That is a lot better of a ratio than it was last week. Next is the Guaranteed Rate Bowl over in Phoenix, Arizona. Kansas versus UNLV. It's a 9 p.m. kickoff. Kansas is favored by 12.5. The over-under is 64.5. Give me Kansas. Give me Kansas all day. KU, baby. Rock Chalk Jayhawk.
Give me UNLV.
Why?
I don't know.
Just
Las Vegas, baby. Just got a feeling. What happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. And apparently goes to Phoenix, Arizona sometimes.
I guess so. Okay, that is a bit of a shock pick to me, but okay.
Next up is our
live, people.
Yeah. Next up is our Wednesday, December 27th slate. First game will be the Military Bowl presented by GoBowling.com in Annapolis, Maryland. Annapolis. Virginia Tech versus Tulane, 2 p.m. kick. Virginia Tech favored by 10.5, over under 45.5. Give me Tulane.
Is Willie Fritz coaching them for this one?
I hope, because I just picked him.
Let me check that real quick, and do not worry, I have you etched for Tulane. You cannot pick.
All right, I remember that.
I'm messing. Let me check this real quick. Fritz, Tulane. Willie Fritz, Tulane. What was the bowl again? The
Military Bowl presented by GoBowling.com.
Okay. Military Bowl. And
go with your gut.
You know what? Screw it. I'll agree with you, Tulane. We're both in this.
Yeah, use that gumption.
Shut up. Anyways, the next bowl game we're picking is the the Duke's Mayo Bowl in Charlotte, North Carolina. We know Coach Brown.
This game.
What?
I hate this game.
We know Coach Brown is getting mayonnaise dumped on him. The only question is which one. What? They're both Coach Brown. You have North Carolina versus West Virginia, 5:30 kickoff. Lines West Virginia 6.5. Over/unders 55.5. I want more than anything, especially with how he did all Georgia fans during the SEC championship pick. Now, granted, he was right, but still, after that pick, I want West Virginia to lose by 50. I want him to know pain. I want Pat McAfee to know pain after that. But I think West Virginia is going to win. North Carolina, they can't finish games for some reason. I don't know, but I'm picking West Virginia.
Yeah, I mean, North Carolina, obviously, without Drake May in this game, I think you got to pick West Virginia.
Mm-hmm.
Next up, the DirecTV Holiday Bowl in San Diego, California. We got number 15 Louisville versus USC. 8 p.m. kick. Louisville favored by 7.5, over under 57.5. Give me Louisville.
The only thing stopping me from picking just like the easiest pick ever of Louisville is the travel. But even then, I'm going to pick them. They might not cover, but I do agree, Louisville. Give me a second to write this down.
While you writing that down, I'll go ahead and preview the next one, the Tax Act Texas Bowl in Houston, Texas. Texas A&M versus number 20 Oklahoma State. 9 p.m. Eastern kick. The line, Texas A&M by 2.5, over under 53.5. Give me Texas A&M.
Okay.
Screw Oklahoma State. Screw that mullet.
Wow. I don't even think he has a mullet anymore.
Does he not? That's a shame.
I don't know. He might still. Speaking of mullets and recruiting and all that, I meant to mention it earlier. Did you see that Buford kid's mullet that went viral?
No.
Oh my gosh. You need to look it up, Buford mullet on online. That was a mullet. Oklahoma's the higher ranked team. Texas A&M has lost a lot of people in the transfer portal. Give me Oklahoma State. Give me the Cowboys. One thing does not change, and that is Gundy. Gundy, when he has loyal players, they're loyal. I'll take Ollie Gordon II over A&M's defense right now, especially when they don't have LT Overton and Walter Nolan anymore. So
I respect it.
Yeah. So let's see. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 differentials.
Nice.
So there's a possibility.
Nice.
Like, if you go perfect and I don't, you take the lead by like 1 or 2, I think.
It's all part of the plan, big dog. God's plan.
Was I up by 3 or 4? Are we sure? I thought I was up by 1 more.
1,000%.
Okay.
Never been more sure of something in my life.
Okay. Well, you can take a 2-point lead. You can take a 1-point lead. There is a chance. There's a world where it is irreparable damage here. Where you go down
I could
by
be completely wrong.
8.
But it's God's plan, brother. God's plan, brother.
What happens if you lose on all 5 of the ones that matter here?
It's God's plan, brother. If I lose, I lose.
Fair enough.
We're going to praise Jesus either way.
Daggum right. Lord is Lord. King of kings. All that.
All right. Well, everybody, have a wonderful Christmas, a Merry Christmas. Enjoy your time with your family. Hopefully you're spending a little bit of time with us.
Don't go too hard on the eggnog. Like I'm fixing to.
Make sure you have some Tylenol close by. My peeps will understand that reference.
Yes, very much so. Try not to kill Santa when you catch him kissing your wives.
Good Lord.
Or mothers, depending. I don't judge.
All right. Well, said thank you for spending some time with us. Have a Merry Christmas.
Happy holidays, Happy New Year. Happy Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, all that.
Everything. So, we will see you guys next week.
See ya.